must pay homage to him.
We have always been the prize because we have always had and still have something that other people won't, think they can't do without, and don't care to pay for. Because we have always been the prize, we have been under siege for over 3,000 years. Nothing that ever brought into Africa from the outside was meant to do the Africans any good.
She made me to know my history, to know my roots. So I grew up with a love for myself and secure within myself, never feeling inferior and certainly not feeling superior, but that chip on the shoulder that the young lady spoke about is my self-assurance, my confidence, my ability to speak the truth without fear. I don't bend when I don't have to. I don't scratch where I don't itch. I look white people in the eye and speak honestly and truthfully and candidly and unhypocritically to you. That's not a chip. That's just self-assurance that comes from self-knowledge. Teach your children that, and whether we are here or there, we'll be able to make a future for ourselves.
Who are you? You don't know? Don't tell me Negro, that's nothing. What were you before the white man named you a Negro? And where were you? And what did you have? What was yours? What language did you speak then? What was your name? It couldn't have been Smith or Jones or Bunch or Powell. That wasn't your name. They don't have those kind of names where you and I came from. No, what was your name? And why don't you now know what your name was then? Where did it go? Where did you lose it? Who took it? And how did he take it? What tongue did you speak? How did the man take your tongue? Where is your history? How did the man wipe out your history? What did the man do to make you as dumb as you are right now?
In fact, recently, some lot of garbage is written in books by people who call themselves historians, make it appear as if we have to thank Lyndon Baines Johnson for the advancement because he signed the Civil Rights Bill. Of course he signed it, but while he was signing it, we were in the streets burning the country down. You better hurry and sign it. Burn the whole country down. Do it quick. But if you're not careful, you will thank Lyndon Baines Johnson.
I say now, give us that poetry on number 7. He wanted to go to heaven, so I took him in 7. You took him in 7. I am the king of the world. Hold it. I'm pretty. Hold it, you're not that pretty. I'm a bad man. Wait. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
So we always say the Black Panther Party that they can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips, I am a revolutionary.
Greetings and welcome to another episode of the Melanated Power Hour. I'm your host, Sam Polk Jr., and I'm so thankful to have you back with us once again as we explore issues pertinent to the African diaspora. And once again, for those who are new to the show, the African diaspora is anywhere that black people may be, whether it be Nashville, Tennessee, Jackson, Mississippi, New York, Puerto Rico, Brazil, Haiti, you name it. We recognize those places as our homes away from home, but we also recognize the fact that we are indeed African, and the continent of Africa is our home indeed. And I am joined once again, by the man, the myth, the legend, the funniest man I know, comedian Just Will. What say you, my brother?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir.
That's all I got to say.
All right.
That's all I got to say. I ain't got nothing else to say. I'm upset that, I wasn't, involved in that conversation.
It's all good.
But hey,
in the future.
Yeah, it's hopefully I pray that it's another one because, man, this interview that you had today, I mean,
Yes, sir.
I'm just gonna say this, man. I've for as long as I can remember, this gentleman that you got to interview, man, it's see, here in the past, you've always had these guys that I didn't know, and you was like, man, I love this guy, man. I'm a big fan. I admire him or something.
Yeah.
This is the first time that I can actually be like, man,
right.
This is somebody that, I try to follow his blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and man, it's just I'm just so the things that he's done and accomplished, man.
Right.
You can't. I mean, it's a lot of people out there. I mean, you can't hold a candle. It's mind blowing to see where he came from, because I read the book.
Yeah.
So to see where he came from to where he is now, man, it's like wow.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's definitely monumental. The man we speak of course, is none other than founder of Rap Lot Records, Jay Prince. Big shout out not only to Jay Prince, but also to Julia Beverly, who was the founder of Ozone Magazine, so professional, so about her business, that was able to arrange this conversation. And I'm speechless from, talking with the brother, as you say, his entrepreneurship, not only in music, but I'm a big boxing guy.
Right.
And he decided he wanted to get into boxing, management and boxing promotions, and he just did it. And you can learn a lot from how he did it and a lot of the obstacles that he faced. But not only that, along with some of the other gentlemen that we have spoken of on this show, who I classify as freedom fighters, I also classify Mr. Jay Prince as a freedom fighter, and it'll all make sense to you before the night's over if it don't make sense to you now, you know what I mean?
Right.
But without further ado, we're going to play that conversation I was blessed to have with Brother Jay Prince, and then we'll connect on the other end.
There we go.
Yes, sir. Greetings, Mr. Prince.
Yo, yo, yo. How you doing, bro?
Well, I'm pretty good, man. It's such an honor to speak with you.
Hey, man. Likewise, bro.
Yes, sir. I'm be respectful of your time. I'm gonna set my timer here so we can get you back to business. But I want to let you know that I'm a big admirer of yours, and on this show we study Black history and how to get out of this oppression. And one of the things that we expound upon is entrepreneurship, and you are
right.
Quintessential definition of an entrepreneur. And I wanted to expose my audience to a lot of your wisdom and knowledge. And I wanted to ask you first, I've heard you say that a man is not weak if he believes in spirituality and in God and put God first. And I know you do that. And that helps you to get fear out of your heart and to be able to take on any obstacle that comes in your way. Can you expound upon that a little bit, brother?
My spirituality is the foundation that everything was built off of.
Yes, sir.
I was, the 17th was my mother's birthday. My mother has passed on, and I was just reflecting how grateful and thankful I am that she sent me on that bus to give me a spiritual foundation. Even though she didn't take me to church, she sent me on that bus, man. And that meant everything to who I have became, because that was the foundation that was laid, listening to those sermons that created like a thing in me, a spirit in me, man, where I feel like if God be for me, the world could be against me.
Yes, sir.
And therefore, I allow no fear to take place, in the midst of none of my challenges, whoever they may have been, the DEA, the CIA, you know what I mean? I understand that all of them fall under the power of the Creator.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, man, that was everything to me.
Yes, sir. I'm really big into boxing myself. It's one of my passions. I love it.
Me too.
Yes, sir. I know. I wanted to ask you about a chapter in your book that I've read about 2 or 3 times. Another brother that I looked at in an admiring way was Brother Don King. And I know.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir. I was interested in hearing about your interactions with him. And how did you beat him in court? That's some boss stuff right there.
Yeah. The king versus the prince.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was able to beat him in court, man, because the deed that I was doing was right. You know what I mean? And it was all around the fight of James Page.
Yes, sir.
Which I came to his rescue because James Page, Showtime was paying them you know, a fee like $2 million. You know, and Page was getting like 100 and some of that $2 million, and I understood that wasn't fair. You know what I mean? And I reached out to King. You know, I love him, man. I reached out to him to try and, you know, I wanted to learn from the brothers. So I was like, man, you know, show us some love. Give us a little more money. And King told me, if you want him to get more money, brother, you go get it for him. So that's what I done. You know what I mean? I took him at his word, and I went and done just that, man, which ultimately led to him feeling like he had to sue me because things didn't go the way he thought they would go. And the jury ruled in my favor, man, unanimously.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Tell me a little bit more about the new endeavor that you have embarked upon in your new loyalty wines. Tell us a little bit about that and where we can get it. And I'm looking forward to trying it.
Well, yeah, I'm excited by my loyalty collection, man. It consists of a Merlot, a Cabernet, a Champagne, and a Rosé.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? That's what I'm beginning with. I'm excited about the quality that's in the bottles. You know what I mean? I went all the way over to France and chose, you know, went to a lot of grapes. I'm eating grapes now, but I went to a lot of grapes to get this blend, and I'm loving it. But most of all, the name that I put on the bottle, you know, is a name that complements my lifestyle and what I represent. And I'm just glad to be able to share that with so many in the midst of their celebrations, you know, because, you know, as you know, nobody could be successful at anything without loyalty being in the midst some kind of way. So in the midst of, you know, the Super Bowl games, the marriages, you know, anniversaries, whatever it may be that, you know, people accomplish together, then nothing like toasting to loyalty.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I want to ask you also, I remember in your book when you said that you prayed to God to send you a champion. And you went to go see Mike Tyson, and you was watching him working out, and a young kid kept pestering you, and you didn't quite know who he was at the time, but he ended up being Floyd Mayweather. Can you explain that story for the listeners a little bit? That was a great story.
Yeah, man. No, it's a true story. When I decided to get into boxing, you know, I built a recreation center in the community that I'm from because I wanted to box as a kid, and it wasn't a gym in my community. So I said, if I ever get some money, I'm gonna build a boxing gym in Fifth Ward. So I done that, and after observing the kids in the gym, I decided, I'm like, man, I want to get in the sport of boxing now. This has always been my first love anyway. Been watching Don King, Muhammad Ali as a kid, and I'm like, I want to be in that game. So just like everything that I wanted to pursue or accomplish in life, I believe in exercising the freedom of prayer. So I pray and ask the Lord, I'm like, bless me with a champ. Yes, you know what I mean? And then I went at the best of the best at the time, which was Mike Tyson. He embraced an interview out here in Las Vegas, and I came to Las Vegas. And, you know, as you said, while I was in the gym watching Mike, trying to be a partner on his management team, Floyd, you know, kept, you know, coming to him, and I had no idea who he was or nothing. So I'm pursuing Mike. After the gym, we went to his house and, you know, had a nice conversation, and I left his house feeling like, oh, I'm a part of the team, Mike Tyson team. And later on, that next day, I hit Mike. I couldn't reach Mike. You know what I mean? No Mike. And I was left with the number Floyd had gave me, and he told me, he said, man, call me if you want to do anything. And I asked my friend, I said, who is this guy with this number, this Floyd Mayweather? He said, oh, he the 130-pound champion. So immediately, you know, a red light went off in my head. I'm like, man, I prayed for a champion. Long story short, he and I done a deal, man. It was like less than a week or so. I was with Floyd for the following 4 years.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I want to ask you about the beginning stages of Rap-A-Lot. One of the most inspiring stories in your book. Well, not stories, it's true, it's history. Is how when you first got started, New York DJs had the game on lock, and they kept brothers from the South out, especially in Houston, in your own backyard. They wouldn't let you get a piece of the pie. So you had to kind of run them out. Can you explain? Yes, sir. Can you explain some of those early stages?
Yeah. No, once again, that was a time, man, where they felt like, we were too country to have a voice. I remember they would laugh at our accents, them country niggas, man, woo, 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 all that kind of stuff, And, once I decided to get focused on the music game, I actually went to New York, and because my partner, we moved there, and I went out there for 2 weeks, and I had opportunity to really peep the rap game, because prior to then I was moving so fast in the streets doing things. I never analyzed it like I did once I got there, and that's when I decided to leave and tell everybody, we're gonna be who we are. These guys are being who they are. This is their culture. This is what they're doing here. Let's be who we are. So upon coming back, I met the obstacles of these key individuals, the DJs, people that's playing our music on the radios and in the clubs and everything was from New York. They had spread it around the world like a wildfire, man, just monopolizing things, So I respect their hustle till this day, but I understood that in order for change to come and in order for the South to have a voice, then we had to put like-minded individuals in a position to play our music that had love for us. And I had to get real creative to do that. You know what I mean? And ultimately that led to them not wanting to be in our city because it wasn't the most comfortable place to be from.
Yes, sir. Understood.
Yeah.
I'm personally from Jackson, Mississippi. And I remember being about 10, 11 years old. When I first got into rap, I was listening to Run DMC, LL Cool J, Public Enemy, those kind of brothers. But when I first heard the Ghetto Boys, the voice that stick out to me the most was Willie D. And the first thing I remember thinking was, man, this cat sound like one of my uncles or something. So that southern sound is what drew me to it. And if that makes sense. And I remember hearing you say,
it make all the sense in the world.
Sir. And I remember hearing you say that Chicago, which was very interesting, Chicago was one of the first places to embrace Rap-A-Lot. And there's a natural pipeline from back in the day when cats from Mississippi that couldn't deal with all that oppression, they would go to Chicago trying to get out of it. And a lot of those guys are Mississippi imports, you know what I mean? Why was Chicago so important and recognized? I'm thinking that they was thinking like me, hey, these brothers sound like where I come from. Do you think that had a lot to do with it?
Yeah. Most definitely, man. Without a shadow of a doubt. You know what I mean? They, a lot of people don't have knowledge of what you just said. The Chicago, you know what I mean, is so deeply rooted where the South is concerned.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? And they embraced me. Matter of fact, that whole Midwest embraced Rap-A-Lot before, even Houston. They just embraced us, man. They could relate to us. And, I'm thankful for them guys all the way up until today.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? Sir. Beginning with my man Larry Hoover.
Yes, sir.
Up there.
Yes, sir.
Because he showed us love, man.
Yes, sir. He gave you some powerful advice when you went to go see him. I'd done my research on you, and he told you don't stop swinging. And I remember reading also and listening about you that you were able to impart that same wisdom on a young man named Colin Kaepernick. And you gave him some advice because you saw he kind of fell on his sword for the benefit of brothers that come after him. He don't get the appreciation I believe he deserves for that.
Right.
what were you able to tell him to give him the inspiration to keep going and not to give on his stance?
Yeah. No, we had a lot of conversations, and I wanted to be of an inspiration to him and let him know first and foremost that I was riding with him. You know what I mean? And I respected the stand that he was taking, and that was before it had became popular.
Yes, sir.
And most of all, I explained to him. I said, man, when I went and visited my brother Larry Hoover, one of the things that I left with that kept ringing in my head that meant the most to me, and we had a long conversation. But for a man to have done 20-something years at the time,
yes, sir.
He had 40-something now, but it was 20-something then. He said, whatever you do, don't stop swinging now.
Yes, sir.
So, boy, that was like music to my ears. You know
yes,
what I mean?
Sir.
So I shared that with him, and I feel like that meant something to him.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely. I want to mention a name to you. Being back in my younger days, I was involved in a particular political group. I'm gonna leave it like that. But there was a brother that was a high official in that group and a mentor of mine for a few years. His name was Hashim Nzinga. Do you know who that is?
I remember that name. Yeah.
Yes, sir. He used to tell me when there was a brother named Big Skip, and he got killed by the police at a White Castle's in Cincinnati. So he organized us to go up there and demonstrate a little bit. And he used to tell us that he had a good friend named Jay Prince. And that's when I really started watching you. And he said, this brother is an entrepreneur. He's a soldier. And I started out as a journalist. And he said, if you could ever get 30 minutes with Mr. Prince, you'd have done something, because that's a man of means, a man of business, and he don't waste no time. So Brother Hashim has passed away a couple months ago, but I wish he could see that all these years later, I got to sit down and talk with you on my platform. I think he'd be proud of it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He watching us, man. He watching us from up on high.
Yes, sir.
You know
yes,
man?
sir.
He's smiling, man. That's my brother, man.
Yes, sir. What advice would you give to a young brother starting out, not just in music, not just in the sports arena, but in any business endeavor that he would try to embark upon to kind of escape the bondage that we in from a day-to-day 9-to-5 grind that's only going to keep you just being able to stay afloat? But he wants to get out and strike out on his own. What advice would you give a brother or a sister like that?
I would tell him to dream and dream big. You know what I mean? Don't allow nobody to discourage you where your dreams are concerned. And educate yourself. It's so important to educate yourself, and it's so important to stay away from bad habits.
Yes, sir.
If it's two things that I witness that, keep us in bondage, is a lack of education and practicing those bad habits, man.
Yes, sir.
Whatever they may be. You know what I mean? So dream big and educate yourself, and you know what I mean, stay away from them bad habits, and have faith and get out there and have that work ethic that's relentless.
Yes, sir.
On accomplishing whatever you want to accomplish.
Yes, sir. When you see Mike Tyson and Roy Jones about to get their fight on after all these years that it should have happened, and I know you were responsible to almost making that happen back in the day, what do you think?
Right.
And what is your prediction on that outcome today as opposed to what it would have been back when they were in their primes?
Yeah, I'm happy for the brothers, you know what I mean? And my prayer for them is that everybody leave out of that ring safe.
Yes,
the way they walk in that ring. But I'm happy that they finally, bringing that fight, the fruition. As far as who would win, I didn't know who would win back then, and I don't know who would win right now.
Yes, sir. I mean? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm still in that situation because, this is a different time right now for them to be fighting.
Yes, sir.
And it's hard to really pick one. I'm definitely when you're riding and rooting for both of them.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Like you said, you just wish for a good fight and everybody healthy when it's over with. Yes, sir. I want to ask you about your ranch also. That's so inspiring. One of my goals in life before it's all said and done is to have a farm, and I want to have a horse ranch. But I know that you have a ranch and you deal with cattle and beef production. Can you explain a little bit about how you got into that, and how is that going?
Yeah. I definitely have Black Angus cattle, like 300 some head of Black Angus cattle and Santa Petruta cows, and we probably have about 20 some horses on the land also. I always had uncanny love for land ever since I was a kid. On that ride to the penitentiary, looking at that land in the back seat of my grandmother's car, I just like started falling in love with the greenery, and I always been a guy that liked to hunt and fish, wildlife things. So all of that is what caused me to want to have a ranch, and it's one of my favorite places in the world to go to and, get that tranquility.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. On the Melanated Power Hour, I always post a book list because we are a big proponent of reading, and I've heard you say that readers are leaders. I know that you were inspired by a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Can you explain to the listeners a little bit about what that book actually entails and how did it inspire you?
Yeah, that book was life-changing for me. You know what I mean? That book, what it done for me was I had a lot of gifts that I was unaware of. And reading that book, for the first time, I was in bondage for a long time with the thoughts in my mind that you have to have a degree in order to become a millionaire or in order to become successful.
Yes, sir.
Upon reading that book, it broke down so many that started with nothing, didn't get a degree, but figured out how to turn nothing into something. So what that book detailed for me, it made me identify my gifts that I was unaware of, and then it taught me the importance of structure, prioritizing things and writing them down and goals and different things like that. So that was life-changing, man, because, it's one thing to have a lot of, it's almost like a fighter, right? If you don't know that you got a knockout punch in your right hand, then you don't understand that, I can make this a short night. Just use my power, right?
Yes, sir.
So it taught me where my power lied, and then it taught me the art of prioritizing the structure and everything where it was needed. So I was able to go on a long run from me being on, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We also point out on this show freedom fighters, and basically all a freedom fighter really is a brother or a sister that is what we call a race man, and they stick up for the race, and they promote black owned, and you exemplify that to us. And I wanted to ask you, when a man such as Huey P. Newton or Bunchy Carter or Malcolm X, when they start making that move toward helping their people and getting them on the same page as they are, they come under attack. And I wanted to bring up two names, Schumacher and Scott, for the benefit of the listening audience to know what kind of oppression that you came against because of you trying to establish black-owned businesses and getting brothers on the same page as you were in terms of their personal life. The level of oppression that you came across, I don't think a lot of people realize just how deep it got.
Yeah, no, it got real deep. It got so deep until they wanted to take my life. You know what I mean? They had put a hitman on me. This guy had killed 8 people. So you can imagine that you're aware of how many bodies he killed. And
about 8 or 10, right?
All of a sudden all of a sudden you decide that this is the man for Jay Prince. This is how we can stop his heart from beating. So that's what I was up against. but no weapons formed against me prosper, because if God be for me, who could be against me?
Yes, sir.
But I had to endure all of that, just like so many of the greats that came before me had to endure what they had to endure. So, I'm no greater than those that came before me.
Yes, sir.
But I am a freedom fighter. And you know what I mean? I think I'm going to be a freedom fighter all the way until it's over.
Yes, sir.
You know what
Yes,
I mean?
sir.
I'm going to keep swinging.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I want to ask you also about Maxine Waters. I've heard you big up her. She's an elder, but she came to your defense when a lot of other people wouldn't. And I heard that you said she had more testicular fortitude than a lot of men you knew. Can you explain her relationship with you and helping you out? And because I want the listening audience to be familiar with who she is.
Yeah, she's an angel from heaven. You know what I mean? Congresswoman Maxine Waters is an angel from heaven.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? And I believe the Creator sent her my way, along with the late Janet Reno, because she played a role as well. As I stated, people that was in my own backyard, politicians and different things, I reached out to them. None of them would help me.
Yes, sir.
I wasn't asking for help because I was in the wrong. I was trying to let them know, okay, this is what the people, I'm a law-abiding taxpayer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here's what they're trying to do. You know what I mean? It's not right.
Yes, sir.
Now, all I really wanted to do was document what these guys, threatening and different things they saying they were going to do to me. So when I came out on top, I didn't want nobody to be upset about it, because I felt like the Creator was going to put the enemy right in my hand, and I was going to be victorious if they chose to try and take me out in an unlawful way.
Yes, sir.
Okay. It just so happened that, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, had opportunity to view my company, to listen to what I had to say. And she was wise enough to see and recognize some things that wasn't right.
Yes, sir.
And that really shined the light on a lot of things, even though it didn't, I don't feel like it saved me, but still a lot of other people lost their freedom, and some probably lost their lives with these road cops, because as you know, recently, one of them by the name of Chad Scott, and that was Schumacher friend, he just was arrested a year or two ago for some of the same behavior that he was doing over a decade ago.
Yes, sir.
So this guy was allowed to stay on the streets for another 10 years or better, destroying lives and freedom, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We really appreciate you, Brother Prince. It's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. I want to ask you for two favors. You got to give me an yeah, and you got to tell me where did that come from.
Yeah. Man, that just, that just was one of them natural things, man, where I was in the studio and I just felt like it felt so good to me, right?
Yes, sir.
And I just, and I wasn't on loyalty or nothing back then. Wasn't no drink in the mix. You know what I mean?
Yes,
sir. It was just one of them soul food grooves that I got from the music, man. And I just started using it every time, something to play.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you so much, Brother Prince, and we're going to continue to lift your name up and mention you to people and tell them you somebody who has a lot of wisdom to impart, a lot of information. It's a mighty information, and we so thankful that you are able to have the ability to give it to others for the benefit of them to go a little bit further. We appreciate you, brother, and I thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and talk with me.
I appreciate you, bro.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Peace. So that was a big thrill for me and a big honor to talk to somebody that I look up to not only for his entrepreneurial prowess, but his ability to move and switch lanes from music to boxing to some street level stuff that we not gonna just glorify, but well rounded in the quintessential definition of what I would call a race man, and that's a word that we've used in the past, but it's basically a man that stands up for his race, believes in being black owned, believes in not selling out, and believing that there's a bigger purpose that's worth fighting for and not giving in. And that was a big honor.
Well, I just want to say this, man, because first of all, he's a big inspiration. Okay, I wouldn't have this logo, my company. I wouldn't have this production company or anything that I'm doing. If it hadn't been for some of the encouragement I got from just seeing his foundation, his blueprint. And man, it's just I'm kind of envious right now because I was like, man, I really wanted to be there, man, to talk to him. Unfortunately, like I said, I was sick and everything, man. But oh man, that was, and he's that interview was everything I probably imagined it would be, and to get deep and get the questions that a lot of people, unlike myself, because I know a lot of the stuff that you was talking about, but to see that side of it, man, because you see the lifestyle and everything like that, and everybody's like, oh man, that's Jay Prince, But to get deep and ask some questions like you did, man, I mean that was deep, man, and I really enjoyed it, man. Like I said, I would have enjoyed it even more had I been there.
Well, but hopefully there'll be a time in the future.
Hey, Jay Prince, if you're listening, brother, which I imagine you are, hey, come to Brown Brothers Studios, man. We'd love to have you. I'll buy some extra water and everything.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I think it's important sometimes not just to talk about people in a historical sense that have passed on or moved away.
Right.
But I recognize Jay Prince as an elder before he becomes an ancestor. While he's still here, let's celebrate the man, his achievements. And there are so many young men and women that are around that if you can extract the same kind of message that you could extract from a Huey P. Newton or Malcolm X, you can get that same message from Jay Prince, but in a package that will be more palatable for that young man to listen to, because he comes from where they come from, and he represents what he represents. A powerfully wise man, and one of the things I admire about him is that it don't cost you nothing to get some of that wisdom. He'll impart it on you for free.
Let me ask you this: how did you first become aware of Jay Prince?
Well, of course, I'm sure like you, as a youngster listening to the Ghetto Boys, I always heard that voice. You would always see that name, especially if you was nosy like me and you read everything. You was reading the credits, you see that name, but you didn't know who he was. I didn't. I will say about 2003, I joined an organization called the New Black Panther Party, and I originally gave a call to a brother named Malik Zulu Shabazz, and right around this time, there was a young man who had gotten killed in Cincinnati, Ohio, at a White Castle's. He gotten sick. So the people called the ambulance. Well, the police beat the ambulance there. And what do you think they did when they got there? When they got there, they saw the brother having trouble. They choked him out and killed him instead of rendering aid until the ambulance got there. So, needless to say, we drove up there and we protested and we brought attention and some other things to that situation. And at the time, Chairman Malik Zulu Shabazz, who was the leader of the organization, who was another brother I admire, there was a man named Hashim Nzinga, who later became the leader of the New Black Panther Party, or the chairman rather. But at the time, he was the chief of staff of the New Black Panther Party. And just getting to talk with him, he was from the Texas area. He had grown up with Jay Prince, and he was telling me about him. And the reason we were having this conversation is because right out of college, I kind of cut my teeth as a journalist, as a writer, right? And I was looking for people to interview, and I was getting interviews for freelance writing, for black-owned investigating Brother Jay Prince.
Now, Jay Prince, a couple of things that you talked about, you know, when you interviewed him and everything. He ran a couple of New York DJs out of Houston. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, early on in the history of him founding Rap Lot Music Records, he had a brother who was a rapper. Jay Prince wasn't a rapper. He was in the streets, and his brother was always rapping. His younger brother, and he wasn't quite cut out for that life in the streets, right?
Right.
So, because he rapped all the time, Jay Prince said, "I'm going to make your dreams come true. I'm going to start a vehicle to where you can make your music and live out your life ambitions." You see what I'm saying? So he called it Rap-A-Lot Records because his brother's stage name was Sir Rap-A-Lot. As he's getting this going, there were several different iterations of the Ghetto Boys. The Ghetto Boys that we know, Bushwick Bill, Willie D, Scarface, even Big Mike, there were like a couple sets of Ghetto Boys before them that he had to keep getting rid of. But anyway, when he started to really make some noise, as you know, back in that day, late 80s, the New York rappers New York hip hop had it on lockdown, you know, and it had spread all over the country. Like even if you went to Houston, Texas, and there was a radio station playing hip hop music, the importers of it were New York DJs. So of course they wouldn't play Southern music, they wouldn't play West Coast music. But Jay Prince just wasn't having that in Houston. Like you're not gonna set up shop and play only New York records in Houston. Like and one of the reasons for not playing it was the New York DJ said they sound country and they sound slow and they rap slow and nobody want to hear that. You might not want to hear it, but you in Houston where everybody sound like that. So needless to say, those DJs, you know, didn't get the hint. So he had to think of, you know, unique ways to run them out. And, you know, we'll leave that at that.
I'm glad he did that because had he not done that, because, man, trust me, you know, that's all I knew when I was coming up, you know, Yo MTV Raps, and it was nothing but New York rappers on there. So when I first heard Ghetto Boys, I was like, yo, these brothers sound like me.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, from Ghetto Boys, I started listening to 3 6. You know what I'm saying? And UGK and 8 Ball MJG. You know, so now I'm hearing all these voices that kind of sound like except for Memphis because they got their own dialect. But I started hearing all these voices that sound like mine and their lingo and some of the slang they talking about. I knew it, you know what I'm saying? And it wasn't the no knock to Cali or New York, but I'm from Tennessee. So therefore, I want to hear what Tennesseans talking about or Southern guys are talking about because I know we here.
Right.
We going through the same thing, so I want to hear that. So I thank him for doing that because maybe if he hadn't have done that, we wouldn't even still have a voice.
Yeah, well 2 points. The first point is, as Mr. Prince has said many times, if you played it and the people didn't like it, that's acceptable.
Right.
But you not playing it and making that decision for the people instead of the people saying, "Hey, we heard it, we don't like it." Let them hear it. They might like it.
Right.
That is what was unacceptable. So that's number one. Number two, you mentioned some names, Pimp C, 3 6 Mafia, 8 Ball MJG. Do you remember Suave House from back in the day? Okay, Tony Draper is a student of Jay Prince. Master P. He's a student of Jay Prince. If you didn't have Jay Prince, there wouldn't have been a mold to shape others from. They learned how to be independent. They learned that what's the point of working so hard, giving your sweat, your toil, your effort, and some of this stuff can be dangerous. As we just said, you might have to run a DJ or two out of town, or they run you out of town, and then some, pardon my French, but someone of another persuasion is going to set up a system that's legal to where their great grandchildren are going to eat and live off of your work. Why don't you get it for yourself? And he was one of the first to even do that. You can make an argument, Luke in Houston, in Florida with Luke Skywalker.
Yeah,
but and it's a valid argument. It's a valid argument.
I mean,
but the point I'm saying is I don't know if he was so apt to share the knowledge of how to do this.
Exactly.
And that's one of the reasons why he's worthy of tribute. And it's another reason, no matter for us to talk about it, no matter what it is that you do, you can't really consider yourself a success unless you have a successor.
Exactly.
So who are you molding to step right in once you leave? Because none of us are going to be here forever.
Right.
Why take that with you?
And it's funny you say Master P, because, you know, I was a big time, even back in college, I was a big time Master P fan. And, you know, before college, before I got there, you know, when I was listening to music, you know, and I started, I'm late. I started listening to rap music probably 7th, 8th grade and all that kind of stuff. Well, anyway, I used to hear P talk about, you know, he talked about this, he talked about that, and then he would say Jay Prince. And, you know, he's like, yo, I got the game from Jay Prince. I got the game. So I'm like, well, hell, at first I was like, well, you know, I want to build my empire like P. Who's this guy that he got it from?
Right.
You know, so I need to research that.
Absolutely.
And, you know, Jay Prince,
but
man,
it's always that way, generation after generation after generation, if you don't read, if you don't study. When I hear, won't call any names, some of them may be rappers, try to make a stand and do something that's beneficial for us as a people because he thought of it. And to open your mouth and say, it's the first time this ever been done, and you haven't checked to see if it has been done before. People have done it 2, 3, 4, 5, 20 times before you. If you studied, you would have learned their mistakes, and you would have learned not to do. And some of the pitfalls that you are having now, you could have avoided all of them. When you hear BLM, Black Lives Matter, say we're attempting to do something, we're attempting to form a political party, and it's never been done. No, you don't read. It has been done.
Well, the problem is, Sam, and like I said, I get what you're saying. You don't want to say any names or anything of that nature, but everybody has this thing where they want to be the first to do something.
Well, the reason that it is because you don't read.
Right.
If you don't read, you think. I watch my daughter sometimes, and she'll discover something, and she'll come home and say, Daddy, let me tell you about this. And I'm sitting there listening like, because I want to, man, my mama used to play Miss Mary Mack. But when you don't have a barometer to gauge something, you think when you saw it first, you the first one that saw it.
Right.
I'm the first one to think of this. You look and research, and you may find some help, because we have always rebelled. We have always found different facets to fight this battle, whether it be political or non-political. And if you just read and make a careful analysis of your history, you may find some information. You may even find a blueprint that can show you how to do it better, because where they failed in the past, that's a roadmap to show you where the potholes in the road are, so you can go around them instead of falling in them. You know what I mean?
Now, let's talk about him visiting Larry Hoover. And I think you said that's the founder of the
Gangster Disciples. Yeah. I guess to the average person, he's someone who's a villain or vilified, and much like a Stanley Tookie Williams, right? But if you really believe that the justice system is to reform people, then you have to also make allowances for the fact that it is possible to be reformed. Larry Hoover is from where I'm from. He's born in Jackson, Mississippi, right?
Okay.
So I know a little bit about that. Moved to Chicago, of course, and he founded an organization called the GDs, or the Gangster Disciples. And Mr. Prince, being in Chicago, very interesting story. Where do you think the Ghetto Boys first blew up? Of all the places, where do you think they first blew up?
I'm not sure.
Where the people really gravitated toward them? It wasn't
probably my neighborhood.
Texas. It wasn't. it wasn't Mississippi. It wasn't Georgia, like you would think. It was Chicago. And one of the reasons that is, as we've talked about previously, the Great Migration and blacks escaping oppression in the Deep South, traveling up north, out east, and out west to get away from Jim Crow, right? If you're from Alabama, you travel due north to Detroit. If you're from South Carolina, you travel due north to New York. If you are from Texas, Louisiana, you would travel due west to California. If you were from Mississippi, you would travel due north to Chicago. So a lot of those people are first-generation transplants who have grown up and are now old enough to go buy their own music.
Gotcha.
So when they hear a Willie D rapping, that man sound like they uncles. It sound like they brothers, sound like somebody they grew up with. So they like, man, that sound like my parents talking. So it's a down home feel. So they really get into it. So he has much love for Chicago. He's always in Chicago. When he learns of Larry Hoover's plight, he goes to visit him. And he gets to talk with him, and he gives him some advice. He tells him don't stop swinging at him because he knows what he's up against. And Jay Prince has always said that when you look at a place like Chicago that has so much gang violence, and people often ponder, what's the answer? That's the answer right there. You got them in prison. When you take the leadership from young men, they do what young men do. They act a fool. What did you do when the teacher walked out the classroom?
Act a fool.
What did you do when the football coach walked out the meeting? Well. So, well, our situation was a little different. We was so scared we still acted right. But this man is reformed. This man has given work people that have totally transformed their lives for the better. If he can do that behind prison walls, what could he do if you were to let him out? You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
He probably could eliminate a lot of that senseless violence. But when they cages, they usually want the cages for good, man. And he has been a strong proponent of getting him out of there while he's still breathing. He still can do some good on this side. If for no other reason, if you're right, he owes it. Right? He owes it to society, right? Well, let him out and see what he can do. You understand? And that's one of the major points about him. Also, he's a subject that a lot of people won't touch. I'm gonna ask the man about it because he wrote about him in his book, and I know that he had him on the Ghetto Boys album at a time they told him don't put that on there. He said, "You don't tell me what to do. I'm gonna put it on." You see what I'm saying? Right. So I'll ask him about it. And I'll worry about the fallout later if there is any. But he's another person that we could do another hour on. That he's not so much what you think. The public will vilify you. They will try you in the court of the media. But what research have you done on your own to see what kind of a man or a woman
and that's
we're
the thing.
with?
No, and that's too much like work. Nobody's going to do research.
Yes, sir. Yes,
They're going to go off hearsay of what somebody else who didn't research.
Right. So that is true.
But I can go on there for hours. But now let's go ahead and talk about, because we're a little late on this.
Okay.
Now, when I saw the interview, I was like, wow, that actually already passed this weekend.
Okay.
With the Tyson,
Roy Jones, yeah.
Let me ask you this,
okay?
Because Jay Prince is big time in boxing. First of all, how did he even get into boxing?
Well, boxing was his first love, and he was a boxer. And the streets kind of called him away from it because there wasn't a place at the time strictly relegated for pugilism. In other words, you can go to a gym and play basketball.
Right.
You can go to a football field and play football. There were no boxing gyms readily available to him where he grew up. So once he got the means to, he built a boxing gym in his neighborhood, or in his hometown, for kids to come stay in shape. But if you were serious, you could see how far it could go. And the idea struck him that he wanted to start managing fighters at a point in his life where he don't need to be fighting no more, as he was as a young man. Let me manage fighters. Because another guy he soaked up game from was Don King. And then, that's another guy I revere. But what happened is he said he prayed to God for a champion, to send him a champion, right? So he finds himself in Las Vegas. And he walks in the gym and he's watching Mike Tyson train. And, that's awesome, to see Tyson hitting a punching bag and jumping rope, one of the best of our generation to do it. You understand?
Right.
And as he's watching Tyson, trying to get a word in edgewise but being polite and waiting for him to start training and everything, this kid just keep bugging him. Like, hey, Mr. Prince, if you want to do some business, call me later. And he just keep on and keep on and keep on. Finally, he just take the kid number, right? So, make a long story short, the things don't work out with Mike. You understand? Trying to get him in his new boxing stable, it doesn't quite work out. But he reaches in his pocket, he pull out this number, and the number belonged to a kid named Floyd Mayweather. And he asked somebody who that is. They don't know who that is. That's the silver medalist from the Olympics and blah, 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 130-pound contender. And long story short, he becomes Floyd Mayweather's manager in his early iteration when he wasn't Money Mayweather, but he was Pretty Boy Floyd. You know what I'm saying? And he led him up to the championship against my goodness, that's gonna be embarrassing for me as a boxing guy, but I can't think of the name right now. But he got him to a certain level, and I think his wisdom and his work ethic and what he was really about, which is entrepreneurship, he's teaching Floyd the game along the way to the point where now Floyd he cut out the middleman. You don't need a manager or a promoter. I do it myself, and broke the bank doing it. Same thing that was done in music or rap a lot, Floyd did in boxing. Whereas he was the promoter, the manager. You may say there's a conflict of interest, but it worked out good to him. He could post a check the next day after a fight for $40 million, and haters are like, man, we know you got $40 million. You ain't got to brag about it. That ain't my check. That's the check of the guy I just fought. I had to write him a check too because I'm the promoter. My check was $240. You see what I'm saying? Right. He doing the whole thing. He not only renting the venue, paying the hot dog man, but paying the guy he fighting, because he's the Don King, he's the Bush Lewis, and the fighter all in one. And you cannot tell me he didn't learn that from being, his experience being around Jay Prince. You understand what I'm saying? Man. But the level of fighter he has, Andre Ward, boxing fans would know him, Shakur Stevenson, Winky Wright, Baby Miller, you name him, he's done.
He had Winky Wright too.
For a moment in time there, and a host of others, and he puts on shows with Bob Arum, another legend in the game, only boxer promoted to defeat Don King in court, which is monumental also, and it's legendary to hear him talk about the first time he talked to Don King on the phone when he made a big splash in the boxing. And Don King answered, called him and said, Jay Prince, my nigga, it's good to be working with another real nigga. That's how he was introducing Don King. But I can hear Don King saying that because that's how he talk. You know what I'm saying? But he soaks up game from him to the point where he touches Don King, and kind of beat him at his own game. But it's all in his book, right. The Art and Respect of Science.
Can we talk about his book real quick? Because that's something that I actually got it as a birthday present on my last birthday last year, and he has a lot of interesting things in there, man. I mean, just from the way it starts off, man, how he was sitting on his apartment bedroom floor, and I'm not gonna give it away. People go out there and get it, but it just inspired me so much to the point where I was like, man, it's one of those things, man, where he tells you, hey, you can do this.
Yeah, and kind of shows you how.
And shows you how. It's the blueprint. And the only way you're not going to do it if you just don't do it.
Don't try.
Right.
And are afraid to fail.
And that's a reason why. And I that's why I don't think I told you this, but that's why I do what I want to do. That's why can't nobody tell me that I can't do nothing.
Sure.
Even when it came to get my own comedy club, yeah, people was like, "Man, you crazy? You ain't gonna do that," and I did it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you can do what you want to do. You just got to do it. Make the attempt.
Yeah. Well, that was the old saying from Yoda: try not, do or do not.
Right.
You know what I mean? And a lot of it is whatever that you find as motivation for yourself. You got to go even past that. For example, a story that I borrowed from somebody, and I can't remember the brother's name, but I'm going to use the story anyway, right? I give him credit for the story, but I can't remember his name right now. He said that there was this man who was one of the best at something. Can't remember what it is. Let's just say he's the best trial lawyer. And he was on the beach, and this young man walked up to him and said, "Can you teach me how to be as good as you?" He said, "Sure, I can." And he said, "Okay, when can we get started?" "We can get started right now." He said, "Hold my hand." He held his hand, and they on the beach, right? And they started walking out into the water. And he just keep walking to the water, get about neck high. And then the lawyer grabbed the boy's head and pushed him underwater. And he hold him down there for about a minute, about 60 seconds. Then he let him up. And of course, when he lets him up, what is he doing? Gasping for air. And he said, what did you want to do the second I let you out of that water? I wanted to breathe. He said, when you want to be successful as bad as you wanted to breathe right then, you will be. So basically, you have to want to do something bad enough to sacrifice not going to the party, not going to the movies, not hanging out, knowing all your friends are doing all this over there, but you know COVID is out there. Mm-hmm. And if you get sick, that's going to put you 14 days behind where you need to be. Exactly. And it's being able to recognize the fact I will celebrate when I got something to celebrate about. Right. But why am I partying and getting short-term gratification when I got work to do to get somewhere? You understand what I mean? Mm-hmm. And when you want it that bad, it's not a sacrifice. It's a part of the process. You understand? I can apply that in my life with other things that may not be important to people. You can apply that with things that may not be important to me, but it's important to you. Things that people really want to do, whether they're good or bad, you don't have to motivate them to do it. Somebody is into drugs, you don't have to motivate a crack addict to go get some crack. He will move heaven and hell to do so. Right. Well, when you have an appetite for success at whatever it is you're trying to do, as bad as that crack addict need that next fix, you don't have no choice but to be successful. You understand what I mean? Mm-hmm. And he is the quintessential definition of that, whereas even when things get dangerous or life-threatening, you continue on because almost at a certain psychological level, this life ain't worth living if I can't achieve what I'm trying to achieve. I don't want to be here no way. Right. So I'm going to do it or I'm going to die trying, as that old saying goes. But that's one of the powerful lessons that you can get from him, not only in his book, but just looking at his life in totality. And not only that, but regardless of what you think about certain musical forms, just look at the successors. Any successful person, whether it's a football coach, you can look at his former assistants. They championship head coaches somewhere now. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? They produce these people. And you just look at the people like we mentioned, Master P, Tony Draper, and all these guys. They came up under his tutelage, as students. And just, you want to see how great somebody is? Look at the people that were once in his watch and care. You understand what I mean? Right. Yes, sir.
Now let's switch gears a little bit, man, because he's definitely a motivator. He's definitely an inspiration. But for some reason, he had an attempt on his life, and it wasn't who you would imagine it to be. Well, maybe you would this day and age.
Yeah. When you tie into the fact that sometimes something ain't always what it appears, and when somebody may be really a freedom fighter, it makes perfect sense. You understand?
Right, but the attempt that was on his life was actually almost carried out by law enforcement.
Sure. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't know, I don't know if you do, but there was at one time a potential for J. Prince, Suge Knight, and Irv Gotti to come together and build this music conglomerate that would have wiped out the middleman, would have wiped out, quote unquote, I hate to use the term, but white-owned music production, so that they would be their own go-tos. They didn't need nobody
They didn't need no outside.
They didn't need no shipping. They didn't need no promotion. They was going to be it. At this point, when they had this meeting, right? It's funny, when Sam Cooke started to go that way, he dies. You see what I'm saying? It's funny how that happens, right? It's not an accident if it happened more than once. You know what I mean? At this point, when this meeting takes place, Irv Gotti becomes under attack. Murder Inc.
Right.
Suge Knight, Death Row comes under attack. Right. They don't survive. Jay Prince is the only one that survives it. And one day, there was a guy named Schumacher, basically a killer, a bounty hunter, had like 8, 9 bodies, that we know of, and another guy named Scott, and they pull him over, and instead of pulling him over in the street you know, where you normally will pull somebody over. They wanted him to pull over in a McDonald's where the power was out, not only in the parking lot, but in the McDonald's, when the McDonald's don't ever close. It looked like you got some kind of a range. Somebody that ain't thinking on that level would have just pulled over. He's like, nah, that don't look right. I'm going to pull over in this well-lit gas station down the street. And when he does so, the officer get out with this gear like he was ready for war. You know what I'm saying? Looking like a Green Beret or something. You know, just armor, the helmet, the works, guns. And he wants to know why in the hell didn't you pull over? Well, I asked you to. And Mr. Prince said, well, it's pretty dark over there, and I didn't want you to think I was trying to do something to you because you couldn't see me good, and I didn't want to think you was trying to do something to me because I couldn't see you good, so I pulled over here where it was lit. So that plan was for you. He believes, I do too, that he probably would have gotten killed that night. Yeah. He gets out. But in the advice of Larry Hoover so many years previous, don't stop swinging at him, he decides to do something that the rest of these guys either can't or don't have the balls to, and that's fight them back and start making a fuss and trying to point out, hey, man, these people are law enforcement. It's their job to protect and serve, and they out here trying to literally kill me. There's attempts on my life. So Congressman Maxine Waters comes to his defense, brings it up in Congress, actually had him come to Washington. And when they expose these people and shine a light on them, it's kind of hard for them to continue these activities. You kind of put them out of business, right? Right. So he lives or survives that encounter, and then sometimes surviving an encounter, you win. Because you fast forward so many years, and those two officers I was telling you about are in jail. Because they've been proven that they were out here literally murdering people. Like what do you call them? Not bounty hunters, but literally henchmen for hire. Like you needed somebody dead, these guys will do it. And those are the guys that pulled him over. And shout out to Maxine Waters and Strong. She kind of reminds me of the female version of Adam Clayton Powell. Not to offend anybody, but unapologetically black and don't give a damn about what you think. As long as it's right, I'm going to do that. And if it's defending this brother, there are a lot of people may perceive as someone who had it coming or somebody that just lives that lifestyle. She said, no, I don't care who it is. If wrong is wrong and right is right. And if this brother is on the side of right, he's providing all these jobs for the community. He's giving back. He's feeding the community. He got a farm where he grows Angus beef, raises hay and sells hay, and they buy that hay like they buy weed. You know what I'm saying? Because it's Houston. It's the South. You understand what I'm saying? Right. Just entrepreneurial genius that a lot of youth and youngsters could learn from, regardless of what you think about the music. We need that brother here. So she stood up in his defense, if for nothing else but to save his life because it was right. And surviving those type of encounters kind of lead to the person that you become, you know. And yeah, it's just a wonderful read. If you don't know his story, I recommend his book, The Art and Science of Respect. And respect will go even further than fear. Because if I respect you, I can't do wrong by you. If I ever do wrong by you, I'd never respect you. You understand what I'm saying? Right. And it's a beautiful title because some people don't know the difference between art and science. And I have arguments sometimes with people. They be like, well, boxing is an art. Now, well, you technically call it a martial art, but it's not an art. It's a science. Well, what's the difference? Art is creating. You know what I'm saying? You can be creative. You can do something differently and it come out right. Boxing is a science. I mean, you do this or you get fucked up. You understand what I'm saying? If you don't master what you're supposed to do, it ain't gonna work out right for you. Right. So to call something the art and the science of respect, there's a time when both are warranted. You have to know how to be kind of creative to get around a DJ that won't play your music. But the science of it is the formula that makes the music worth listening to in the first place. That don't change. That formula was the same for James Brown as it is for Chris Brown. You know what I'm saying? If it don't sound good, ain't nobody gonna listen to it anyway. Right. But having the ability to change lanes and move through traffic effortlessly by being creative and knowing, hey, I can't do it like this, I'm gonna do it like this. And if you read that book, it really is a blueprint to success in whatever, not just music, not just boxing, but whatever you want to do for yourself instead of punching a time clock. You know, no disparaging that, because I punch a time clock.
Yeah, I do too.
But
you know,
one day I don't always want to.
I don't always want to, and
Yes,
we
sir.
both work.
And that's
right.
motivation.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you this, man. Who does you know, Prince remind you of, bro?
Two people. Three. I give a
Because I know you said something earlier.
Yeah,
I'm trying to see if
I'm gonna give a 1A, a 1B, and a 1C. The first person I would say is a person we have mentioned on the show before, but I'm sure people don't remember, and not many people know him. It's a man named Casper Holstein, and he was an immigrant from the Caribbean islands, and he was one of the men who brought the numbers game to Harlem, New York. So successful at that time, he was able to take his money and build dormitories on HBCU campuses that still sit there to this day. The fact that he was engaged in an illegal activity, which would lead most people to call him a criminal, right?
Right.
Means nothing to me in 1914, in 1916. Why? Because what other avenues do we have at that time? With a system that is so diametrically opposed to you having any financial success, any way that you can get it, to me, is warranted. But it ain't the way he got the money. It's what he did with the money after he got it. He put, some people estimate 30,000 kids through college, just paid for it. You know what I'm saying? This is a man who built dormitories, like I said. This is a man who had an essay contest. And if you won the essay contest, he would send you to college, you know. And you may win an essay contest at 12 years old. You see what I mean? You just knew your parents didn't have to worry about that financial burden. If you are a student of African-American studies, especially Africana studies, or the study of Kemet in the Upper Nile and the Hopi River, we know that we have Dr. Ben to thank for a lot of that, Dr. Ben Jocannon. Guess who brought Dr. Ben to the United States? Casper Holstein. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And he brought him here to go to school where he couldn't pay for it himself. He paid for it because he recognized the genius in this young man. Look what he became. You know, look how beautiful it turned out.
You.
So Jay Prince reminds me of that, right? Because you got the street edge, you got that real solid, if you want to call it gangster. There's a little bit of a difference between a gangster and a racketeer, but ain't much. Like about as much difference as there is between a tight end and a receiver. You know what I'm saying? And he
that's a difference, right now.
There is a difference, but at the end of the day, you both catching the ball and trying to score a touchdown. And then the ones that do it the most get in the Hall of Fame. You know.
Yep.
So that would be my 1A. Go look up Casper Holstein if you don't know much about him or never heard of him. There's a character that's loosely based on him on a show called Boardwalk Empire. If you ever seen that, about the casinos and stuff in New Jersey.
We'll talk about that.
Okay. Yeah. 1B would definitely have to be Bumpy Johnson.
Yeah,
I see a lot
He's the
of
modern
Bumpy
day.
Johnson in Jay Prince, simply because of the fact I've studied Bumpy Johnson about as much as I would dare say anybody else in my circle. And the parallels are kind of uncanny. Only as it should be. It's often not, but one of the reasons you got to give a knock to him, a nod to him, is he's a better version, because you ain't supposed to go backwards. You supposed to do a little bit better than the one before you. He's avoided jail. He's avoided prison. He's avoided the assassination attempts. He don't got that story to tell. You know what I'm saying? Why? Because he can think. You understand what I mean? And when it was time to get out of what he was doing and go legit, go legal, he did it. You understand what I'm saying? But he still has that same nature. He still has that same thing about him. That one of the reasons that draws me to the study of Pullman porters and numbers runners or policy kings is that they were all race men. And lames couldn't hang with them. And one way to be identified as a lame is somebody that didn't own a book or didn't read, because this is what they talked about. Because they was at a time where the biggest subject of the day is how are we going to get liberated? How are we going to get free? We can't vote. We can't live where we want to. This was always at the forefront of their conversations, mainly because these were the men who had the financial wherewithal to actually do something. These are some of the men that financed your favorite civil rights leader. Like, you ever thought, how did a civil rights leader back in the 50s keep the lights on? He can't work nowhere. They'd kill him. Even if the place was a friendly environment, they wouldn't hire him. They think he'd get blown up. A lot of these number racketeers paid their bills for him, fed their kids for him. And that's in the spirit of a Bumpy Johnson that wanted to see that flourish and grow. But Jay Prince has always said that a reader is a leader. And he's also told a story about how books changed his life and how reading a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill got him to think in a different way that he wouldn't normally have if he hadn't read that book because of his environment. See, a book can take you any place you want to go. If I want to escape my normal situation, if you sitting in the house with COVID and you so desperate to get out and go somewhere, order you a book about something you like. It'll take you to another place. Because when you have that connection with your mind and yourself, which you rarely do, maybe when you sleep and you're not quite lucid and it end up in a dream form, some kind of crazy. But when you are lucid and you can have that one-on-one time with yourself, a book can take you somewhere that's beneficial to go. You understand what I'm saying? And there ain't no going back once you've done it. And second thing, a man should never say he's bored. A man should never say he has nothing to do. And if you sitting at home, a grown-ass man, and you're bored, what does that say about you? Because I can say, when I'm in the house by myself, I've never been in better company. You understand what I'm saying? Because I enjoy myself. And I can pick up a book and be as entertained as I was if I was out somewhere. And I can learn something and I can apply it. And my goal for every day is to know something more than I knew the previous day. And one of the best ways of doing it is reading. You ain't got to be reading books, read essays, read articles, read newspapers, stay up on current events, and also study the past. But great men, it's funny. If you want to be a great person, a great man, a great woman in history, I guarantee you they're a reader. I guarantee they got a library in their house. And I guarantee that excuses that other people use, for example, not being exposed to certain things, I didn't know about that stuff. They weren't exposed to it either, but why were they? Because they read about it. Right. Because they knew that there was other places that you could go in life, other things that you can do. Pick up a damn book and read it. He's a proponent of that, and that's another reason to put him out there. Also, I wanted to mention he got a new wine line coming out. Speaking of entrepreneurial spirit, called Loyalty Wines. And when you look at the packaging of it, when you look at the detail, it ain't just thrown together, man. That's first rate, first level, first class type stuff.
I need to go and get some bottles of that.
And check this out. When you think like the average guy, hey, I'm going to do that too. And he in the kitchen somewhere trying to mix grapes and shit and don't know what he's doing. He went to France and got legit wine growers and asked them their opinions and took this serious. You know what I'm saying? And
as well he should. You know?
Right. But the I guess the key lesson I'm trying to tell you is if something is worth doing, it's worth doing right. And if you're not pursuing excellence in that, whatever,
then what are you doing it for?
What are you doing it for? There you go. You hit the nail on the head. And
that's why. That's why I look up to the guy, man. You know, because like you said, if you ain't trying to be excellent, what are you doing it for?
Right.
Why do you? That's why I spend countless hours doing what I do, man. Because, dude, I want to be the best at what I'm doing.
Well, you can definitely, no matter what it is, tell the difference in somebody that wants to be seen and somebody that has no choice because they was born to do that. For example, you ask Jay Prince, if you never got into music, what would you be? I don't know, but I'd be a millionaire. He just know that.
Right.
Because whatever it was, he was going to be excellent at it.
Right.
And it's also being smart and knowing what you can do. Like if you 3 foot tall and your dream was to be in the NBA, we all got our dreams. But is that achievable? Find something that is. I think everybody has something in them that will make them great at something. The problem is it don't come with the manual. You got to figure that out kind of on your own. And I think a lot of times if you can find somebody that was great at one thing, they could easily be great at something else because they tapped into what it took, whether it was hard work, whether it was study. You can apply those principles, those rock solid principles to anything. You see what I'm saying? Just give me time and I'll do it again. Even if you take it away from me, I'll be a millionaire in a little bit. You know what I'm saying? But that type of motivation for people who previously had none or was unaware that kind of motivation was available to them, they can see somebody who's done it. You know what I'm saying? They didn't do it in some old outlandish way like the NBA or the NFL. This is just a regular guy. You know what I'm saying? He ain't 7 feet tall. He ain't 300 pounds running a 4.240. You can do what he did. You can own your own wine company. You can own your own restaurant. You can do this and you don't have to be a slave or in bondage to those streets doing some of the things that you're doing. No knock on anybody that's surviving the best way they can. But when you realize that you're doing harm to yourself and your community, and if that was your way to get to the next level so that you can do good, God bless you. But if you stay in that place in perpetuity, it's kind of something wrong with that. You understand? Perfect example of figuring that out early on and taking that same zeal and that same effort and applying it to something positive. You understand what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. I wanted to show you another picture. I don't know if we got to it. Can you put that picture of Roy Jones back up there? Roy Jones and Mike. I like that picture because I don't know if you remember, but back in what was this, 2003 or so, the Source Awards were giving an award. I can't remember what the award was for, but Roy Jones came out to give the award, and then Mike Tyson came out. And if you remember, Roy Jones had just beat a heavyweight to become the heavyweight champion, John Ruiz. And Mike Tyson was like, I'd like to get that belt off you, champ. And Roy's like, well, we can make that happen, Mike. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. The reason that was so tight was because people don't know that what happened this weekend, Jay Prince almost made that happen about 2003. It was the difference in $25 million and $17 million that made Roy back out of it, where they thought they could get $25 million for the fight. Mm-hmm. Come to find out they can only get $17 million. Mike cool with that. Roy wasn't cool with that. So that picture you're looking at would have been a whole different fight back in the day. You know what I'm saying? Right. And Roy Jones is someone who's worked behind the scenes in boxing with Jay Prince and boxing management. I think Roy Jones said that Scarface was his favorite rapper, so he's got a tie-in to the music. And I love Mike Tyson. Anybody that know me in boxing know I love Mike Tyson. Anybody that knows me know I love Roy Jones, right? Mm-hmm. And as you can see Saturday, there was a little bit of me pulling for Roy a little bit. Number one, because when you see Mike Tyson beat him, he ain't beating Riddick Bowe. He beating a little pipsqueak guy that started out at 160. You know what I'm saying? And to be able to go 8 rounds with Mike Tyson, and I can identify with Roy just a little bit more because I'm from the South. And Roy country as hell, and he fight roosters and grow and raise pit bulls and ride horses. And I just can kind of relate to him a little bit. There's a little bit of me that wanted me to see Goliath get beat. Now, I will tell you this. A man 54 years old in the shape that Mike Tyson was on, you got to give him credit, right? Yeah. But a former middleweight going 8 rounds with a heavyweight, not just any heavyweight, but Mike Tyson, he gets the nod to me in that fight. You know, I don't know what you think, but
I told you I enjoyed it. Because I was like, because I know Mike Tyson, but I didn't really watch because I wasn't a big boxing guy. So I didn't really watch a lot of boxing. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So when I saw Roy, I was like, man, it's entertaining. I like this.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So
They, of course, a whole lot slower.
Yeah.
A whole lot heavier, and but
well, it didn't. I mean, because I watch UFC and it didn't look any slower than what they look right now.
well,
So I mean,
yeah. But if you watched them in their prime, if you watched it, you would think the film was in. How you cut fast forward off?
Tyson looked pretty fast in there. I mean,
yeah, he did. Well, that's what I'm saying. Superhuman DNA kind of.
Yeah.
You know, like Deion Sanders run a 4.240 when he's 20. He didn't got slow. How old is he now? He's 58. What do you run? A 4.5? You know,
right.
That's faster than the 20-year-olds just walking around. But to be able to get in the ring and do that at that age is something. But the bigger takeaway for me was for a guy who had been getting knocked out for a while by a lot smaller men to go, first of all, to get in the ring with a Mike Tyson and to all the moves still there. They just slow as hell. And it was real entertaining, you know, on both of course, but he get the sentimental win for me because he was able to go the distance, you know what I mean?
Yeah, Roy, I got to go back and watch his other fights now. So,
man, you missing out if you ain't seen him, man. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But James Prince almost put that together back in the day when that fight would have really broke the bank, you know. Yes, sir. But I don't know how much time we have, bro.
We skating on thin ice.
Oh, okay. Well, let me know when to say when and say that it was an honor.
You got about 3 minutes. So.
Okay. Another big shout out to Jay Prince. Hopefully we can do that again. And I cannot stress enough. Shout out to Julia Beverly. I don't know if people know who that is, but that is a renowned writer who started the Ozone magazine, which is a Southern rap publication, and a very professional, very approachable, and I really enjoy our interactions in making that interview possible. And a lot of people we deal with, as you know, ain't so nice to talk to or be around, you know what I mean?
Right.
And these were definitely people who were in the end, what else would you have expected? Dealing with Jay Prince, a class act all the way around. But I encourage people to get his book, The Art and Science of Respect. Hope you enjoyed that conversation that we had. Brief, only about 30 minutes, but hey man, how many people can say they got to sit down with him for 2 minutes?
Right,
you know
right.
I mean? So,
well, I can't say it.
Well, hopefully you will. We're going to continue to bring you good content, good information. And in the words of Great Harry Tubman, we out.